Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 575. Today we're going to take a look at Flow of History. Now this is a design from Moy Ideas Game Design. You can get it I think now on the BGG store, but Tasty Minstrel Games is going to be bringing out some kind of new edition of it later this year. I believe they're going to deluxify it a little bit as well. So what this game is sort of a medium to light civilization game. I wouldn't say it's certainly light, but it's not super heavy either. So it fits right in that medium time frame. So players are going to be sort of drafting, but also kind of like bidding on a row of cards. You're going to traverse through the different ages of history, kind of through antiquity, all the way up into the future in the internet. You'll be getting leaders and wonders, different government and political cards, production cards and stuff like that. As you go through, there is some ways to sort of attack other players and all that kind of stuff. So it has all those kind of trappings of a civilization game. And it kind of reminds me of Through the Ages a little bit, but I mean, the game mechanics are totally different, but it has that kind of vibe. So if you wanted kind of a sort of a more lighter, more digestible Through the Ages, let's take a look at this one and see how it works, and then I'll give you my thoughts. Okay, here you can see all the components that you get in the game. First thing to note is this row of cards here. You can see these all have an A on their back. Depending on the number of players, you're going to deal out a certain number of these cards. Sometimes you might deal out one from age 1 to in the starting row here, but you're always going to have these sort of starter cards out. These are going to be different technologies and things, and so these are pretty basic here. You've got kind of like a basic warrior type of idea here. You can see that it's a red card. It's got kind of an attack icon there. It's going to give you some information. You've got a production card here. You can see this is a working animal. I'll explain kind of the interactions of these cards. Here's a production card or construction card, and these are all orange. You also have here a wonder. You can see these are sideways like that. And then you finally have a leader. Now you can only ever have one leader, so if you take a new leader, you've got to discard or sort of kill off your old leader. Now each player is going to start with one of these S cards. These are starting cards. So you're going to randomly deal these out, and each player will have one. So all of these are really going to give you here are these icons at the bottom. And these are your governmental types of buildings, these blue ones. And so as you play cards out of a similar color, let's say I had seafaring traders here, and then I got another blue card, it would go on top covering up whatever special ability might be there, but I'm still going to have access to these icons here, which I'll explain. So each player is going to randomly get one of these starting cards. And then the other thing to note are these bidding tokens. So over here, you'll have a sort of off-game supply. You won't have access to these quite yet. Each player will start with 4 of their own. And then through the course of the game, you're going to start to add tokens in here into an accessible supply. Now, there are some special abilities and things that will allow you to pull out of the reserve here, but typically what you're going to be doing is bidding and spending tokens to put in the supply and then taking actions or having actions triggered to allow you to get it out of the supply. So it's a somewhat fixed economy of bidding tokens, but there will be injections of new tokens to be bidding with. So you can see I've got the red player here. This is their starting card, Aristocracy. It gives them one of these knowledge icons. And then you have, each player has this cheat sheet here. This is going to give you the different actions that you can do, and then on the back side here you've got the end of game scoring and a little bit of description of what the different icons mean. So there's 4 different actions that you can possibly do, or 5 different actions actually. So first thing you can do is invest, and this is one of the ways that you can try to acquire new cards. So let's say red really wanted these warriors here. They'll put their pawn on there, and then they're going to put at least 1, if not more, of these tokens here. So let's just put 2 on that. So they are in effect bidding on that, and that's their turn. They're going to put their pawn out, and then they're going to put a certain number of tokens. Now, as other players take their turns going around the table, and if it gets back to me, and this is still here, because you can actually get sniped, but if it's still here, then I'm going to pay these tokens into the bank there and take my pawn back, and then I'm going to add this card to my display. Now again, when you add the card to your display, you're going to put it in its stack. So if I had acquired another blue card, again, I'll put that down, covering up any effect that was there, but still again having access to the icons. Now the first thing you're going to do is you're going to check this little investment bonus. All the cards have these little investment bonuses here, and you're going to check all of the available icons that you have, either on the bottom of cards or sometimes on the face of the cards, and you're going to get that much money back. So in this case, I took this one, so I've got 1 knowledge icon. So one of those 2 that I spent, I'd actually get right back out of the supply because I've got 1 icon. If I had multiple of these knowledge icons, I would get multiple of these tokens back. Now, some of the cards are immediately going to activate as you take them, and this attack card is one of those. So if we take a look here, you can see when you take the card, if it's an instant effect with that arrow, or if it's an attack, or this is an attack all, so you'll attack all the players. As soon as you take the card, you're going to do that effect. And the way that attacks work, let's take a look here. This says attack, choose any 2 RT, that means resource tokens, from an opponent with less military strength than you. And so this is a way that you can steal. So all of the military cards are going to have some kind of attack, and they're going to do different things. They might destroy the top card of somebody's stack or something like that, or you could attack all the players. Now when you attack, you're going to count up the number of attack icons. So you can see on this one, this barracks here, this has an attack icon. So you're going to total up all the icons that you have, and you're going to compare them to whoever your target is, or multiple targets. You're going to attack compared to all of their attack icons plus all of their defense icons. So in this case, if I had this card out, I would just have 1 attack, but if I was being attacked, I would have 2 defense, 1 for the icon and then 1 for the defense token. And so you just find a target that is less defense than you have attack, and then you get to do whatever the effect is there. If you take it and there's no legal target, you just took the card, no big deal, you don't get to do the attack, but now you've got some new icons and maybe some other effects on the card. And another example would be this animal card. This is another, you can see it's an instant effect with the arrow. And it says take 1 resource token from the reserve to your nation for each harvest icon. In this case, you've got 1 harvest icon already built in. By taking the card, you'll be able to activate that. And if I had multiples, then these come directly out of the reserve. So you can take these out of that big supply, and then it doesn't have to be in the main supply over there. And then other effects like this one I already showed you, all this does is provide a defense icon. Now you can also take these wonders, and these you don't actually stack. You'll have a big sort of multiple piles of these wonders out, and these are all end game scoring. So this says gain 1 culture icon for each wonder card that you have. So you might take this early and try to pursue a strategy to take a lot of wonders. And these culture icons are what you're going to score at the end of the game. I'll talk about scoring in a minute, but this is really what you're going after in terms of scoring. So you can have multiples of these, and like I said, you have the leader here. You can only have the 1 leader. They will provide an icon of some sort, and then they give you different abilities. Now this one here is a turn action. So when it comes to your turn, if you have any cards that are on top of your stack or visible, then you can take this action as your turn. So in this case it says remove this card from the game to gain 1 non-invested wonder card from the market. There's a lot of cards that'll do that. Say just grab the non-invested. That means nobody has their pawn on that particular card. You can just snake it. So this is kind of a good one to maybe you take it, you get some production icon out of it, and then you've got a nice ability here to queue up if a wonder is ripe and you don't want to have to go through the process of investing it. You can take it that way. And there's a huge variety of cards here. They're all unique. Some of these here, so like this one says permanent, provides 1 attack icon for each military card you have. So basically for each red card you have, these counts as having 1 attack icon, and you can see it provides 2 defense icons moving forward. It also has this little scoring symbol, which is pretty close to the scoring symbol that is on the wonder cards. Basically what these mean is you don't score these. It's kind of like a reverse scoring symbol. So you will count up icons and things when you score, which I'll talk about in a minute, but this is basically telling you ignore that for purposes of scoring. You don't get any bonus points from the icons provided by your military cards. This is just kind of during the game. And then other cards here, these will just provide a couple of trade icons, which I'll talk about in a minute. And these, while it's face up, you'll see the knowledge and the construction icon there. But as soon as you cover it, of course, that'll go away. Now the other thing that can happen is, let's say I want to invest this card and I put 2 on there, and somebody else really wants that. Now what they can do is they can pay me 2 money, they pay it directly to me, and then they will immediately steal that card. My pawn will come off. These tokens will go to the supply over here, and then they will immediately take that card. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So instead of maybe wanting a card, is you'll try to put a certain amount of tokens on here to then get paid out, because you can see as you invest, then you're going to be down a bunch of tokens. So it's sort of like you're not just trying to go for the card, but also kind of setting a price that you want others to try to pay you. Now the other thing that's going to happen when you get sniped, so we're going to kick these off. I'm going to get paid that same amount from the other player, and then we're going to also count the number of trade icons. You can see this icon here, and I'm going to take immediately from the supply that many. So if I had 3 of these icons, I would take an additional 3. So this is a very interesting way to kind of play the game. Is you kind of go out there and build up trade icons and start to collect more and more money as people have to pay you for the cards to go for their strategy, and you'll get more and more out of the supply. And then regardless of the number of trade icons there, you're going to take half the number of tokens that are in the supply. So if you just peek over here, we can see we got, what, 6 over there. So let's say I would take the 1 for the trade icon that I had, then I would take half rounded down. So in this case, I would take 2 more from the supply there if I got sniped. Now the last action that you can do in your turn is just do a harvest. And the way that works is you're going to count the number of harvest icons that you're generating. You're going to take that many of supplies from the reserve now, let's say I had 2, and move these over to here into the main supply. And then again, you're going to take half rounded down. So in this case, I would take 2 from that. So typically as you start to go broke, then you want to be in a good shape where you're able to harvest. And you might just take an opportunity harvest. If this is pretty full, then you're always at least going to get half, even if you're not moving very many or even any over from the reserve into the supply. Now you're always going to replenish new cards as people take new cards will come out. If the card that comes out here, let's say this is age 1, let's say we pulled an age 2 card and there were still some A cards, those will go away. And then once we get into age 3, if there are any age 1 cards, so anything that's 2 ages older, will go away unless somebody has an investment marker on it, then it'll stay there. And then you're going to play until we get to the bottom of the deck. These are the last 2 cards of the deck here, the internet and the future. So once the future comes into the market or is gotten, some cards will allow you to get the top card of the deck and so on. So if somebody grabs that, and you do want to kind of try to wait for that because there's a lot of points here. You can see these culture icons. But once these come and happen, then that's the end of the game. And you're going to play through the whole deck, and then you're going to count icons. So you're going to get 1 point for each culture icon. So you're going to count all that up. And then you're also going to get 1 point for every 2 other icons. They don't have to be pairs. So in this guy, I've got 3 icons. So I've got 1 point plus maybe this icon plus another one. So for every 2 icons, you get a point, except for the culture icons. Each of those is worth a full point. And of course, you have a lot of these wonders here. Like this gives you a point for every wonder and so on. So there's a lot of end game scoring built into those wonders. But that's pretty much the game. You're either investing or completing the investment back on your turn, sniping somebody's investment, activating the special ability of a card, or taking a harvest action to generate some resources when you're inevitably going to go broke at some point. Okay, so that is a flow of history. And now it can almost be a stodgy, dry exercise with this one. It can also be very brutal. So the one thing you got to watch out for is the management of your resources. It's going to be very, very tight. You want to try to set yourself up for situations where when an investment happens and you get sniped, and then you're able to kind of reap the benefit of that. So you want to be able to have out those trade icons so you can just soak up that much more cash, and then possibly even use that as a snipe on your own to get the card you really wanted. Because maybe you went out and you're like, oh, Billy kind of wants that. I'll put just enough tokens on there so that I get paid out from him. He can afford it. And then I can get some, refresh out of the supply that way. So the timing aspect of all of that is pretty interesting. Now the other timing thing you might do is you might do a harvest, but because you want to do it when that supply is full, and you can get a good amount of tokens back, and then that gives your buying power that much more. So kind of juggling all that timing aspect with, okay, I want to build up some production, I need more icons, because when I do the investments, I'm going to be able to get some of my money back, and I want to protect myself militarily, and so I don't get attacked. And so there's a lot of tactics and having to adapt, but you also want to spend some time on the engine building side of it, so that when you do things, they're better. So it's not just like, oh, cool, I got this card, but maybe I got this card plus some money plus this effect was better. But you got to kind of play through the game once or twice at least, I think, to kind of get that and kind of know the cards and know like, oh, okay, cool. Well, if I do this, I kind of go down the knowledge track and kind of balance that with knowledge and some productions and industry stuff. And then I can kind of, when I take those investments and go back and forth, I'm getting more money. So I'm not always like, right on the bleeding edge of being broke all the time. And you certainly can get hammered a little bit, with the military. That's just part of the game. And you've got to watch out for the end of the game, because that's just going to happen. Once you get into age 5, you know, it's just, you're really close, so the game's going to kind of spiral very quickly at the end, so you've got to watch out for that. So the game is certainly brutal, and it's certainly very economic in feel, with that kind of closed economy, you know, watching who can afford what, and, you know, how much do I bid on this? Do I really want it? Am I trying to protect it, or am I trying to bait somebody into paying me, that kind of thing. So that's very, very interesting. So I would certainly give it recommend it. It's very fun. I don't think it's for everybody, because everybody I've played it with has not enjoyed it, but I enjoy it, and other folks I've played it with have enjoyed it. And like I said, I think you got to give it, though, a couple of plays to kind of see it, just kind of the pace of it flow out, because it is brutal. It is kind of, it's not number crunchy, but it is crunchy in a way to figure out what's right, and, you know, what's going on, and, you know, should I really be bidding on this? Is this going to help me? And all that kind of stuff. But I certainly think that the game can play out differently. I've seen games where there's a lot of money in the economy, and played a game where money was extra tight, and it was very difficult to sort of build any kind of advantage for anybody in the game. Now, I've not played it with 2 players. It goes 2 to 5 players. I've played it, let's see, I've only played it 4 players, actually, now that I think about it. So I'm not sure how it will play with 2 players. I think it might work okay, but I kind of think it's better, you know, you want at least 3, I would say, so that you've got some kind of dynamics in terms of the money flow in that way. And I certainly would play with 5, because it's not really going to take much longer. It just, you know, things are just going to be more or less diffused. So based on the plays I've had of it, I think the player count won't matter too much, but I think 2-player maybe might be kind of weird. But definitely give this one a try, and give it a couple of tries, because like I said, the economy's been different the times that I've played it, and just, you know, how frisky they are with their bidding, and how much money is going to be generated once you get sniped, and, you know, how much harvest people do, and all that kind of stuff is going to change up the game a little bit. So definitely give this one a look. Thanks.